Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Max Payne 3. I played on the Xbox Series X via backwards compatibility. It's also available on the Xbox Series S, Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. But be aware, I had to do my capturing on the PC because you can't capture footage on the Xbox for whatever reason. And you should be warned that the PC version has this weird glitch where it pauses, just sporadically and randomly, and it's obnoxious. Okay, so let's get into the story. Once again, you are playing as Max Payne. He is now very much an alcoholic. Don't worry, it's just apple juice. But he is down in Sao Paulo, Brazil as a bodyguard working with his good buddy Passos. But then the people he is working for get kidnapped, and then bad stuff, and it turns into bigger stuff, and you know, pretty stereotypical Max Payne stuff. And the first thing I'm going to say about the story is, it still has a noir vibe, but it's not nearly as strong, and there are a variety of things that do affect that. But for example, it still has that noir narration, and the story itself is dark and gritty. But the narration lacks a lot of the metaphor that it used to have. I mean, you couldn't hear two lines without there being a metaphor in the previous two games, whereas this one, he just, not entirely, but abandons it for the most part. That being said, I do enjoy the story a bit more in this game. I think it's pretty well done. I do think there are a few things that are a bit of a reach, and it feels a little weird in a story like this that isn't as strong noir. But overall, I did enjoy it. Now let's get into the audio, and the first thing I'm going to say is one of the things that strips away that noir vibe is very much the music in this game. But that being said, I actually really enjoy the music in this game enough that I have the soundtrack and I have listened to it several times. I really actually like the music. I think it fits very well with the newer style of the game. As for the sound effects, I think the sound effects are very well done in this game, from the bullet time to the different guns to just everything going on in the game. Then, of course, there's the voiceover work, which this is the best voiceover work in the franchise. I mean, it is plain and simple the best voiceover work. They did a great job casting all the different characters, and all the actors did a great job bringing those characters to life. Now let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and this is a third-person action shooter. And once again, the bullet time does return, since that is kind of a Max Payne staple, but I will say in this game, there is a lot more cover-based shooting. You definitely do find time to dive around, and a lot of my footage is from earlier in the game when it's much safer to dive around, but the further you get in the game, the more you are going to want to be firing from behind cover. So it does slow the pace a bit. That being said, they did add some really cool things. There's a lot of really neat collectibles, clues, as well as the golden guns. But also they did some interesting things with the painkiller element and the bullet time element. If you have painkillers and you get shot, you will automatically go into bullet time so that you can shoot the person who killed you, and it will basically revive you and use one of your pills. If you fail to shoot that person, then, well, you die and you have to restart. Not unlike the previous games, it is very much a level-by-level game. They may be broken up into some smaller sections, but like I said, very much level-by-level. A few complaints, though, I do have are, this game has some really weird difficulty spikes. There are some areas that are just way more challenging than other areas, and it's just kind of strange how you'll not necessarily even stumble into them, but you'll just be started in a much harder area at the beginning of the level, and then as you go, it gets progressively easier. I also want to point out that any guns with a laser sight suck. The laser sight is a useless aiming system in this game, and it gets really obnoxious, and it's unfortunate because, I mean, why include that mechanic if it's supposed to be helpful or something, and it's really just not. It makes it very hard to target your opponents. Now, let's get into the controls, and the controls are far better in this game than they were in the previous two games. This is the Max Payne controls that we have wanted and needed since the first game. And since I did play this on PC, I can say I like the PC controls as well. I do think the weapon switching could be better on the PC. It's easier on a controller, in my opinion. Now let's get into the graphics, and this is the best looking Max Payne game. It actually still looks pretty good by today's standards, and this is a 360 PS3 game. I mean, this is that era when Rockstar really stepped up and showed that they have true potential when it comes to the graphics in a game, and I mean, I'm not complaining. I think it's actually still a good looking game. For a game that was going for realism to hold up this long later, I think that's fairly impressive. I love the effects in this game, from the gunfights to the bullet time. I think that all looks really cool, but the thing that really just impressed me was the world that they built. Looking at this world, you do hop around from a few locations, and I think they did a great job bringing them to life, whether there's bullet holes, destruction. More importantly is that the world feels real. It feels lived in. Just subtle details that they do, like when you're in the favela, that add a certain level of realism to this game. Now, I have said that it's a good looking game, but I will say that some of the character models there isn't as much detail in. Specifically, you really notice it in the hair. It is how the hair looked back in that console generation, which isn't quite as good as it does now. But I do think they had some really great subtle details with Max Payne. The wear and tear you see on him, the healing of his injuries, things like that. We all know he shaves his head at one point, and the cool thing is, at first it looks really shaved, but as like time goes on, you know, a couple days later, they have it look a little longer, a little darker. Small details like that I just thought were impressive considering back when this game was made. Okay, so to wrap this up, Max Payne 3, while it does lose the noir vibe to an extent, I think it's the best Max Payne game from a gameplay and graphics standpoint. It really finally nails down what we've all been wanting from a Max Payne game. But overall, I gotta say, I recommend it. I had a really good time with it. I had fun playing the Xbox version because the PC version is janky. If you can get that fixed, go for it, play it there. Okay, so in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, is it me or is it time for another Max Payne game? Come on, Rockstar, start making games again. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.